is Allan Moffat, carrying the Ford flag as always. I think, Allan, you're a bit higher up than some people were giving you the possibility. You're up there in the second row, and you can't be too unhappy with that.
No, well, the crew worked extremely hard to get us in the race, and it's a long way from where we were on Friday. I'm thankful for that. We're disappointed. We work all year long to get on the front row, but second in row for 1,000 kilometers isn't going to be any handicap.
How hectic are these opening laps going to be?
Well, I got some pretty tough guys in front of me. I think we've seen historically that the opening laps, no one likes to let anyone get away, and I don't think it's going to be any different this year.
Well, the man who least likes to see them at $100 a lap?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody will be cognizant of that fact and wanting to get it.
So that's what, $16,300 in prize money just for the leaders of the lap. So there's a lot of money involved.
Yes, there is too. But we'll do everything we can.
Allan Moffat on the second row of the grid.
Wonderful images there. The late Evan Green speaking with Allan Moffat, who is our special guest on V8Xtra today. Welcome back and great to have your company. Now, I don't normally do this and rattle through a bloke's CV, but this is absolutely worthwhile. 4 Bathurst wins, 70, 71, 73 and 77. 4-time Australian Touring Car Champion, 73, 76, 77, 83. 6-time winner of the Sandown Enduro, twice Australian Endurance Champion, Australian Sports Sedan Champion, Australian Sports Car Champion, raced and won at Sebring, raced and won at Le Mans, raced at Daytona, World Touring Car Championship, inducted to the V8 Supercar Hall of Fame. The list goes on. Welcome, Allan Moffat. It's great to have you here.
Mark, nice to see you.
Extraordinary list of achievement, Allan.
Thank you.
And I said at the top of the show that really, together with some other very special colleagues, you really underpinned what we enjoy today. So it's a very special corner of Australian motorsport that you occupy.
I was fortunate to be part of that. It was my life. Once I got the cars that I was capable of doing something in, you were very kind not to mention any years there, but from the time I got my first go in the ex-Jimmy Clark Lotus Cortina, which was a great car for its day. It was one of the fastest touring cars in the world, was eclipsed by the Mustangs rather quickly, but it gave me my grounding to be able to have a good car to find out whether I could become a race driver, because everybody thinks that we were born race drivers. No, we weren't. We became them. And you had to work from the ground up. And that Cortina program with me was, I'll give myself 2 years. If I can't win a race in 2 years or feel comfortable to start with and capable of winning in 2 years, I'm going back to the workforce. Fortunately, I never went back to work.
Kind of. Moff, can't let today go without asking you, favourite car? I know it's hard, but can you put your finger on one?
Oh, most definitely. The Trans Am Mustang. It was given to me. It was given to me at a time when it was just going to do this with my career. And we actually landed the Trans Am in May of '69, and fortunately Ford Motor Company in that year decided they wanted to do something serious, and Al Turner was brought out from America, from Ford US, to start the program, and I'd got a few runs with the Mustang under my belt and an endorsement from my mates in Detroit that maybe he should look at me as a co-driver, and that's where my career started. Going to Bathurst in '69, October of '69, and just walking around the circuit the first day, I said, I think I'm going to spend a lot of time here. I didn't realize how long it was really going to be, but that's really was my career. Everything else ran. But my favorite car was the Mustang because it was so significant a vehicle, and it did, as you mentioned, Neil, set a standard for race preparation. The car was standard. What was underneath it in the engineering side of things is what made it go, which is exactly the joy that the fellows have today with the cars they're racing.
Allan, what do you make of the modern era? So all these years on, and we talk about the great cars of the past and some of the stars of the past. When you look at what we've got today and you look at the seeds that have been sown that have flourished, what do you reckon?
Well, first of all, you have, in my era, there were really only 4 or 5 of us that were capable of winning, and that was probably stretching it. And we'd go to Bathurst with 55 cars, so you're going to do an awful lot of lapping. I think the real joy that I saw at Sandown last weekend at the Norton 360 Challenge was you have got 25 guys can really win the race if they want. They can't say they're not there. They're not there because they haven't fine-tuned their car as well as the chaps that are at the very front. But we've got a tremendous show for the crowd where you see the whole back straight is a line of cars. Now, some will say that they're too much of a line. Well, fine. The fellows at the back have got to work harder to get to the front. And the blokes that are at the front aren't there by accident.
Yeah, nothing's changed there, has it, eh?
Not really.
Alan, let me ask you, you know, Brock, Johnson, you've had some great guys you fought against, particularly in that Mazda RX-7 era. Was there anyone that springs to mind that you felt really threatened by?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question, mate, because I was going through some files and I thought we had the homologated cars with our Peter Stuyvesant little Mazdas. The late Greg and myself had a good time, but I was shocked when this came out and we saw the gigantic wing on the back and we thought, how are we going to win against this machine?
I trust our viewers can see this. This has got Crompton across the windscreen. Look at the wing. You're always destined to be a pilot. What were you thinking, mate?
This is about Allan Moffat. This has got absolutely nothing to do.
Yeah, and I'd
the
avoid
fact
the
that you've
subject.
conspired to participate in this, Mr. Moffat, is a very frustrating process.
Actually, when the Japanese got a copy of this, they were really concerned that their attack at Le Mans wasn't going to be strong enough, because if this came from down under and threatened them, they would lose face, so to speak.
Dear. It's time for me to grab the steering wheel, take control. We're going to take a break on V8Xtra. I'm going to have a quiet word with Alan. I'm going to beat up Larko. And when we come back after the break, we'll have a bit longer chat with Allan Moffat. He's our special guest on V8Xtra.
View from the 7 helicopter, a scene we've never seen before, side by side. He's going to have trouble braking here to let Moffat through again. Now he does, and Moffat from the outside will sweep around and take the checker flag first for victory in the 1977 Hardy Ferodo 1000.
Mo's Mobiles is a great sponsor of V8Xtra. This week's Mo's Moment, Allan Moffat, that famous 1-2 at Bathurst in 1977. Larko, where were you in 1977?
Oh, mate, I riding a motocross bike around somewhere. Kid.
I was sitting in the fork of the tree at the top of the hill next to the Shell Tower watching this man pull off that historic victory. Our special guest on V8Xtra is Allan Moffat. Allan, great memories.
Thank you. Well, it was. Taking one car to Bathurst and getting qualified and finishing is an effort, as you know. To do that with two and to come 1-2 was really the thrill of my career.
Alan, I just want to touch on James, your young fellow. He's doing well now. I saw there on the weekend, or a couple of weekends ago at Sandown, win a couple of races, on pole by 0.4 of a second. What sort of things are you saying to him? I mean, these cars are very hard to drive now, hard to break through. I mean, you must be able to give him great advice from what you've achieved.
Well, I couldn't teach him how to drive the car, Mark, but I was strong on what to do with your mind about qualifying. And for, you know, he hasn't just arrived yesterday. He's done Utes, he's done Lotuses, he's done Carrera Cup, and he started to show that he wasn't frightened of what he had to do with the Carrera Cup cars. But I felt that he was never getting the best out of qualifying. And I had a fanatical approach. Oh, I shouldn't say that on television, should I? I had a very determined approach to qualifying day. I figured, what was the use of not having your car as perfect as possible? What was the use of not getting on the front row? Because tomorrow was going to be a hard day if you didn't have those things in place. And it is a mental task. Stop the fooling around, get the car right, and if it isn't right on the first lap of practice, come in and fiddle with it and keep going and keep going. And if you need any more track time, well, then you better find another car and get out there a week beforehand and do it that way. And I think that penny finally has dropped with the Falcon that he's driving at the moment.
Signs are there.
Yes.
Alan, one of the things that I mentioned earlier in the program was not only the fact that you brought all these famous motor cars to light for us, and, you know, we passionately revered these things, but one of the other things, and it probably doesn't get talked about as much because we tend to get swamped by all the numbers at the top of the chart on your CV, one of the other things that's notable for me are the number of different commercial partners that you brought to the sport that were different. I mean, you know, we see the oil companies, we see the tyre companies, we see the car companies, and they've traditionally been part and parcel of the business, but Coca-Cola, Brute 33, Federation Insurance, Pan Am Airlines, ANZ Bank, Synovus Vitamins. I mean, Rothmans. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people who traditionally hadn't been drawn into motorsport. So your commercial act was as strong as your competitive act.
Well, I wish that list had been a little bit shorter, which would have meant that some of them had stayed longer, but that was hard work behind the scenes, and you know what that's like. So I never forgot my door-to-door salesmanship, and truly the thing that was always most disappointing was the sponsor that just dropped you. And I won't go into any names or places, but it's hard to recover from that. And you might recall when rules changed, when CAMS dropped things on us after the Mazda program, I didn't have a car for a year. And fortunately, Pete Brock asked me over for coffee that year in '85, and I was back in business driving with him with great verve and delight, I might add. But the sponsorship is part of the act, which I even hate the word sponsorship. It's a partnership.
Yeah. One of the other things that's always intrigued me about the Allan Moffat racing story, which is a much bigger documentary than this program, was the way in which you finished. And you said this to me quite recently, and I thought it was rather poignant. In the way that you finished your racing career, I'll let you tell the story, but you closed the door, you got out of the car, you did what you had to do, and off you went. You tell it.
I retired the day we won the Fuji 500. When I say we, Klaus Niedwitz and I won in our ANZ Sierra. The Japanese didn't know what hit them after our last pit stop, and we went on to win the Fuji 500. That was the weekend of my 50th birthday, and from the time I was 40, I was prepared that I'm not going to be a 50-year-old race driver, and I stuck to that.
Did you see that, Neil? Here we are in 2009, still the ANZ Sierra. That's the professionalism, Alan, that you brought to the sport.
But I just like the way you put a nice full stop on the end of it. I mean, you did it winning, you did it at the highest international level, and you walked away and you haven't looked back.
I have looked back a little bit, because truly the last 20 years have been more hard work to have a regular job than the race. The racing was never work.
Larko tries hard
it
not
didn't
to have
matter
a real job.
how many.
Do you ever look at the current cars and think, I wouldn't mind sneaking a lap, or no way?
Well, I probably wouldn't know how to drive them properly with a sequential drive. I'd be looking for the gear lever, and then when I looked down on the dash and there was no tacho and certainly no oil pressure gauge, I'd be finished.
But just quickly, I wanted to ask you that, Alan, when you see the cars, how they don't move around as much as they did in your era, say, I mean, is there an argument you think our cars are a little accurate to drive? I mean, it seems hard for a young guy to break through now.
I think it is hard for all the young fellows getting to grips with it, and there is a definite technique, and if you look at all the people that have been introduced through that are just the drivers, have nothing to do with the teams, quite a number of them don't do it automatically, that's for sure. It takes a number of miles to get under, and if I had one, if I can recommend, or if I can pat James on the back, is that he's done very well in a very short period of time in that car.
Adapting to the car, yes, without doubt.
Unfortunately, time zaps by. We're going to get you back for our final segment in a moment, but before we go off to the break, of course, email is a very big part of the show. We get lots of it each week from our passionate motorsporting viewers. We've got a ripper in from Julie Norton this week, and it's a question that we all get asked quite a bit from time to time. Mo's Mailbags question of the week: why are V8 engines 5 litres in capacity, that is in the racing cars, and not 5.7 like some of their road counterparts? Well, Julie, the answer to that question is that both the Ford and the Holden engine are derived from a block that comes in both cases from the US. They've been 5-litre V8 since the category got started the back end of 1992, and then we kind of ratified it in 93, and it changed name in 1997. And of course, across both brands of cars in their road car fleets, they're all varying capacities. So in the interests of parity and evenness, all the cars have 5 litres in engine capacity. So you win Mo's Mobile Pack this week, and here it is, the Nokia E63 mobile phone. You're also going to be able to jump onto the network with 3 Mobile with your prepaid starter pack and chat away to your friends and ask a whole lot more V8 supercar questions. Check out the website for store details near you. Mo's Mobile. We're going to take a break on v8Xtra. When we come back, we'll wrap up. Our special guest is Allan Moffat.
Just my old friend Allan Moffat on the phone there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, you said to me, how was I going to go with my carburetor? And unfortunately, your fuel injection has outlasted me.
Yeah. The, gee, you got a picture in the car there at all?
I can see you. You're looking a bit relaxed.
Well, that corner there, I just went through there. It's about 280k, absolutely flat. So it's not bad, but I've got no second gear, Al. I'm having to hold it second.
Well,
so,
actually, I thought for a minute it was Doug Mulray in the car, but now that I see your mobile sign there, oh, that was a nice little one.
That's all right.
Easy on that gearbox, Broggy.
Yeah, I know. Look what I'm doing. I'll show you. I'm holding it in there like that, steering one-handed, and then booting it. But it's very difficult because my wrist is getting sore. But as Alan Jones was saying, we don't want to be complaining too much about the physical effort of driving a racing car. We might be compared to certain overseas drivers.
Well, listen, mate, you always were good with one hand, so stay with it.
Hey, Alan, you got it.
What was going through his mind? How could he imagine and talk all those words and drive the car at full speed around Bathurst?
Fantastic, isn't it?
What a wonder.
Great images there of our great friend, the late Peter Brock, and having a two-way chat with you, Alan. And there's just, I mean, there's so many memories that relate to those endurance races, especially at Bathurst. I've got a million questions to ask you and absolutely no time. One of the things I quickly want to ask you, though, is James got an endurance drive jacked up in the main game for Phillip Island and Bathurst?
He's standing by. We'll know. Stand by. We'll know. You'll know by the week, the next race.
Okay.
So
right.
now, if that happens, is there half a chance we may see you and Larry Perkins side by side on the pit wall there?
I'm like you. I don't have a manicurist that can handle my nail-biting habits, so I think I'll be watching it on television. Thank you. I got revved up enough at Sandown. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we'll keep a close eye on that. You've got to let us know if he does pull that drive together. And the other thing I noticed was the 999 on his car. Any relationship to the old number 9 days for you?
This was his doing, and I thought I was just in sync with 888. Why not be one number ahead of 888? You know, 8, 9. That looked good to me.
Can you promise to come back and see us again sometime?
I'll be delighted.
Allan Moffat, thank you very much for being with us today on V8Xtra. Thanks, mate. Pleasure to see you. And thanks also to Mark Larkham. Great to have him here this week. Allan Moffat on our program. We'll drag him back at some stage. And why don't you fire us some emails from time to time and we can throw some questions at the man. Thank you to Allan Moffat. Thank you to Mark Larkham.